Testing 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2 1 2. Lord help me, Brad.
Good deal.
What did you do?
I didn't do anything really.
Testing 1 2 1 2.
See if it works.
Testing October 14th, 2020. We'll be starting in about 15 minutes. We will be starting in about 15 minutes.
Wow. Yeah, you're referee, man. You're supposed to give a 2-minute warning.
It's 10 o'clock. We call the meeting to order. At this time, we have the pledge by Dr. Wilson. At this time, we're going to go around the room and introduce board members. We're going to start with Nancy White. Great to see you, Nancy.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Nancy White, Morgan County.
Jim Wilson, Marshall County. It's good to be here in person.
Bob Dunleavy, High County.
Scott Roadtruck, Monongalia County.
Deborah Sullivan, Kanawha County.
Daniel Snavely, Putnam County.
Dave Perry, Fayette County.
Miller Hall, Raleigh. At this time, introductions must be in the Department of Education.
She took Dan Tunge's place. That's a joke. That's a joke.
Really, we'd like to welcome all of you today. I know this is a time of uncertainty with things going on. We appreciate our board members being in person today. Again, want to say thank you. At this time, I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Been properly moved and second that the agenda be approved. Is there a question on the motion? None heard. It's been properly moved and second that the agenda be approved. All those in favor say aye. Say
Aye.
yes.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 3, delegations. Do we have any delegations today?
Good morning, President Miller. We did receive a letter from David Gledkowski from the West Virginia Professional Educators, and in person today we have Fred Albert with AFT West Virginia.
Fred, hold on. Before we get Fred, we did receive a letter from David. You all should have a copy at your stations. Everybody get a copy. This is delegation. And I looked at this information, and it's some great information. And some things that we already know that's happening. If you look at, and I think Deborah had talked about this before this meeting, teacher shortages. It's a major concern. They don't have substitute teachers in the rooms. It's really, they're doing double duty. So there are some concerns there that I have mentioned to Superintendent Birch, and we're going to look at these concerns, and some of these things are already in the works. You want to make a comment there?
I know we typically don't do a lot of response to delegations, but I think for the public, I'm glad Fred's sitting right in front of me because I think Fred will know some of these. Ms. Sullivan, you're correct in the delegations and President Hall. We do know we have a teacher shortage. We actually have many schools that we're finding have to close down temporarily when they do quarantines, and it's not because of an outbreak, it's because of the contact tracing and not having substitutes to fill in. So just so the public's aware, we have reached out to Higher Education Policy Commission, and the universities and colleges have all agreed to assist us so all seniors in their student teaching semester can actually apply as a paid substitute and forego student teaching, and actually so many days of substitute teaching will count for their student teaching. We're just trying to fill in some gaps. I know that we got a information from Bondi Gibson and Jefferson. She said you would be surprised. Even give me 2 to 4 of those students that I can utilize makes a big difference locally. Number 2 is the metrics. I will go public again, and Fred and I were just having this conversation. We want to make sure folks understand that neither the union leaders or the state superintendent or the board, unless I'm mistaken, we don't get involved, and we really don't have a whole lot to do with the metrics. It's a health metric. We get the map on Saturdays. So any confusions or any time there are problems, we encourage you to call the hotline. We really do. We don't know how Teresa Hammond is still with us. She just takes so many calls between 8 and 4, so call and ask her. And then procedures. We have posted the procedures. There is actually a statewide guidance that's supposed to be followed for all cases, and that is for quarantining as well as coming back to school. We held a meeting and asked the local health officials to meet with the 55 superintendents. Dr. Amjad and Michelle Blatt hosted that. They did a great job walking through those. So we hope that everybody's following the exact same protocol when it comes to return to school. And then finally, I will say that the CARES money, there is actually a website. It is public if you go to the Department of Education. It is a public site. We have broken down every dollar of the CARES funding, how much each county received, and there's actually a document that shows what it was applied for. So it may be 60% of it going toward technology or social emotional or PPE. And so if they need any additional information, please reach out. We'd be glad to provide it.
Dave, question?
Thank you, Mr. President. Question, Mr. Superintendent. Number 1, do I understand with the metrics that the color code comes from a Thursday figure rather than a Friday figure?
That is correct. It is frozen Thursday at midnight.
Is it, and of course I know that you said this rests with the governor, but of course maybe we can convey the message to it. Is it possible to freeze that on Friday?
From what I understand, it is not.
Okay.
It actually takes Friday for DHHR to validate the data, and then they have a small period of time Saturday morning for the health expert, the panel, to review after it's been validated, to review on Saturday morning and make their final recommendation.
And there are two codes, the DHHR code and the department code, or matrix.
Yeah, there's a daily DHHR code, and I think for the public, one of the things to remember always is that's raw data. It's just being pushed in from the local health department. So when they freeze that on Thursday night at midnight, they are actually then validating and what we call scrubbing that data to make sure it's the right data we're making a decision for.
With all that said, you know, I personally, as a single board member, would hope that we would represent to the governor that this information be made available sooner, like Saturday morning, since it is a Thursday accounting or documentation, in order for people to prepare if the color code changes. And I hear that from many teachers, superintendents, and building level administrators. And I know at one point we talked about it, maybe changing it from 5 p.m. to 10 a.m. What is the status, or, you know, I'd like to know the feelings of my colleagues as well.
No, so we started off at a 9 o'clock release on Saturdays. We did get it pushed back to 5. The governor's very aware that the earlier the better. I do know that Christy Day has staff here on Saturdays because we have to have groups here ready to launch and put everything together live. And it is really often, if I'm not mistaken, Christy, I think it's right sometimes up to about the prep time for you to begin posting. So up until now, we have not received any data earlier than trying to make that 5 o'clock. But I can tell you, I think they're getting more efficient with it. I think that the processes are getting a little better as they review, but we will continue to articulate that earlier is better.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Superintendent.
Any other comments? Okay, David, hope you're listening on your streaming and your organization. Appreciate the questions, and I hope you the comments was helpful to you and your group. Again, thank you. At this time, Mr. Albert, Fred, you got 3 minutes, Fred.
I can talk fast, I
Okay,
think.
all right.
Thank you, President Hall, Superintendent Birch, and honorable board members. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak with you. First, I want to start off, Mr. Perry, you're much more generous than I. I think that this should be done by Friday evening, and I don't know how that could be done, but if the data is frozen by Thursday night, because parents also need to know more time to plan for their following week. But I want to read very quickly this letter or email that I received, and it's numerous emails I get every day from teachers. This one says the staff, and I won't mention the school, has great concern about the required CIA testing data being used for our evaluations this school year. We are bringing this concern to you for several of the following reasons. The testing is a requirement from the WVDE. Students in several counties like Kanawha are remote, they were at that time. Testing is being done in an unsecured environment. Several instances have occurred of invalid testing data due to parent and guardian interference, and this issue involves several counties, therefore needs to be addressed at the state level. That's just a sampling of some of the emails that I get. There's a lot of confusion. There's confusion with the map. There's confusion with what's the procedures. And I'm not blaming the Department of Education, but I'm just telling you there's confusion that abounds. We hear every day teachers are worn out. They're doing face-to-face and remote instruction. They're holding down 2 jobs, and they cannot do that. It can't be sustained. Our cooks and our custodians and our bus drivers, they're doing double duty. Our aides are doing things they were not employed to do originally. So everyone is pulling together and working as hard as they can, but there's a tremendous amount of frustration. There's stress levels, you know that. They are to the sky. We need help in addressing some of these issues. I don't know what all the answers are, but I do get emails like at 5:01 or 5:05 on Saturday evening telling me to fix it. And I can't fix it. It's not mine to fix. I wish I could, but people are very frustrated. Teachers and service personnel alike, parents as well. There's just so much confusion with this whole atmosphere that we're in right now. So I don't know the answers. I wish I did. But if you have answers, please share them with me so that I can share them with members who really are reaching out for answers. And we also have a tremendous shortage in substitutes, as you've said, and our teaching staff. I think that's only going to grow, and with our service personnel. They don't want to risk their lives for something that is as dangerous as this COVID-19. So thank you for your time. If I can help in any way, please let me know how, and I'll be glad to do anything that I can from my union. The good news is, on Hoppy's survey, unions are up as far as their favorability with the public. We're up like 7 points this year from last year, so I would like to think we're doing something right for our members and for the community at large. Thank you very much.
Fred, thank you. Fred,
You're
Fred, do you have anything when you want to leave with Virginia we could look at, or?
I don't really, other than that email that I don't necessarily want to share, but I
Okay.
get numerous emails. That was just an example
understand.
of
I
the
understand.
emails that I do get, and I'm sure you get them as well. There is one other one that
Okay.
I just thought of, taking temperatures.
Okay,
You know, when I came in the building here today, I had to have my temperature taken. If I go to my doctor or if I go to my insurance agent, they're all taking temperatures. Can we not do that in schools as an extra measure of safety? I know it could be expensive, but I think it would make our staff feel a little bit more comfortable if students and staff alike were having their temperature taken as they enter the buildings. I hear that quite often.
okay, thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
Again, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that you have the information to take back with you. As to the email, we will have a presentation later under the superintendent's report on teacher evaluations for this year. And just to be very clear, there are no required assessments from the state at all on teacher evaluations and interim assessments.
Thank you, Superintendent Birch. Again, Fred, thank you for the information, and let me say this to you. We're going to listen. We're going to listen. Do we have all the answers? Probably not, but we're gonna work to find out, because we're in this game together. And we all need to understand that, it's a tough time, but we're gonna do the best we can and work together and try to make it through. So again, thank you for coming today.
Mr. President, I was told earlier we were going to speak up, so I would share this, that I would hope that Mr. Albert or anyone would share those emails, not necessarily the from whom and so forth, but that maybe a condensed version of the concerns that he gets would be shared with the superintendent. So that's just a suggestion, maybe.
Fred nodding his head up and down, so I guess that means yes. So Fred said no problem. Thank you, Fred.
Oh, okay. All right. Good morning, everyone, again. We do have a few recognitions to share with you today. First of all, well, I think the way we'll do this is because we've got some technology going on, and we also want to allow you the opportunity to speak with some of our guests who have joined us remotely. As we noted, this month is October is National Principals Month, and it's an occasion that we recognize here in West Virginia 2 of our state principals of the year. First, we have Alicia Lett. She is the West Virginia Association for Elementary and Middle School Principals Principal of the Year, and she is the principal of Cranberry Prosperity Elementary School in Raleigh County. She is a National Distinguished Principal by the National Association of Elementary Principals. She has been at Cranberry Prosperity for 8 years. I believe when she was recognized and bestowed the honor, I believe you were there, President President Hall, excuse me. You were. I apologize for that. And she has a master's and a bachelor's degree in communications disorder from Marshall University. She promotes social and emotional growth of her students, and she was able to secure funding for the Leader in Me program at her school. The West Virginia Department of Education recognized her school as one of the state's technology model schools, and she was one of the first principals to be Apple certified. So she joins us online now for some discussion. I have lost control of and privileges because I don't know what I'm doing. Can you hear us, Ms. Lett?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We have a boardroom full of members, and the public is here, and I'll turn it over to our Superintendent Birch and to also our President Miller Hall and other members of the board.
So we definitely want to hear from Ms. Lett. I will tell you that President Hall was able to be there in person. Ms. Lett, we have known each other for a very, very long time, and reading the list of accolades for you, I go back to all of the work you've done for us, and I'm going to say for us as a state. She has actually been an absolute model if you want to see infusing STEM education, technology, Apple Distinguished. I mean, just the list goes on and on and on. And the shift you've made to also meshing that with everything around the social emotional needs, the Leader in Me, it's just so impressive to watch you bring all of those initiatives under one roof and be so successful at all of them.
Well, this young lady is from Raleigh County, and I've been knowing her longer than you've been knowing this young lady. And we want to say thank you. Thank you for your commitment and your dedication to our students across the state of West Virginia. I know you just Raleigh County, but you are impacting the state of West Virginia by some things that you're doing, and we all taking note. So congratulations on what you're doing. Job well done. And in closing, I'd like to say this. You have truly made a difference. You have truly made a difference at that elementary school. Because when I was in Raleigh County, that elementary school, not mentioning any names, there were some concerns. You have taken those concerns, you have turned the negative into positives. Another thing that you have done, you have used the community. We talked about community, you have used the community, you have used the stakeholders, you have got other people involved, and that's why you have been successful in my own opinion. So again, thank you, and we congratulate you as being one of the top principals in the state of West Virginia, and continue. And I'm gonna challenge you. You know how I am. I'm gonna challenge you to continue to do better for the future and the year after and the year after. And again, thank you, and good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you.
Any board members, you have anything else you want to talk to her or say? Ask her a question? Put her on the spot. That's why she's here. No? No? Okay, again, you have anything else?
No, and maybe Miss Lett, just a few words from you. I know that we've had you here before. You've spoke to us, so we'd love to hear from you.
Well, President Hall, Superintendent Birch, members of the board, I just want to thank you just for taking the time out of your busy schedule to recognize this. Honestly, President Hall, like you said, we've known each other a long time, and I know many times you were in my office helping me. And it's just an honor to be recognized. And honestly, I feel like this recognizes our whole school. We put our kids first no matter what. And the leader in me has just been a platform for us to teach life. And when we teach life, all those other skills fall into place. And I'm just so blessed to be surrounded by the people I'm surrounded by. And I can't thank you all enough for your support. Thank you.
Two, well said. Any other comments, concerns for her about her? Okay, thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
And we also welcome Dr. Mickey Blackwell, who is the executive director of our organization. Just wanted to welcome you today as well. Moving right along, we've got also, who was not with us, but I did want to introduce him. It's John Conrad. He is the 2020-2021 West Virginia Association of Secondary School Principals Principal of the Year. He is a principal of Westwood Middle School in Monongalia County. He's in his 4th year there, and he previously served as the principal of Mountaineer Middle School, and he additionally has held teaching positions throughout North Central West Virginia and in North Carolina. He earned his bachelor's degree in English and a master's degree in secondary education, both from WVU. He is skilled in teaching, team building, community outreach, and differentiated instruction, and he will represent West Virginia at the national level. Well, he will vie for the National Association of Secondary School Principals Principal of the Year. Additionally, we've had a very busy month. September was a very busy month. We recognized our School Service Personnel of the Year and our Teacher of the Year, and we are so honored to have them with us here today. First, we will start with Susie Kilpatrick. She is the West Virginia School Service Personnel Employee of the Year. She is a 36-year veteran bus operator from Gilmer County, and we had the honor of going to Gilmer County and giving her some of her prizes. She completes a morning and afternoon, evening bus run and has never had an accident in those 36 years. She is also an EMT in Gilmer County, and she teaches first aid to the school system there. She's an athletic trainer for Gilmer County sports team, and I will let our superintendent tell much of that story. She takes her job very seriously, and we are very, very excited that she is such a valued member of her community through the pandemic. She has driven the school bus to deliver meals, and she circles back and makes phone calls to make sure her students are okay when they don't show up to collect those meals at the bus stop. So I will turn it over to Superintendent Birch for further recognition.
Were we able to have Susie live? She is on there. Oh, great. Dave, can we pull her up? I'm hoping. So while Dave's pulling her up, I will tell you that, I really want to send a thank you out to Carla Warren, to Mindy upstairs, Marshall, and Brenda Freed. These are folks that put together these events. We had 5 finalists for Teacher of the Year, the 5 finalists for Service Personnel of the Year. Meeting all of them was really, really engaging. I was a little concerned of how a virtual celebration was going to go on. So just so you're aware, I figure we've spent so much time over in the governor's reception room, he owes us a little bit of a favor to give it back to us and let us use it. So the folks over there assisted our tech folks to put on that event, and they did a great job. It was well orchestrated. You guys know Carla is pretty detail oriented. So in between her and Christy's staff, they just put on a wonderful event. President Hall and I got to be there and see things live. So Ms. Kirkpatrick, if you did, good morning, Mr. Campbell. If you didn't get to see the event live, she was actually on the football field while the event was going on, because in the evening she is the athletic trainer for the football team. And she was so excited. And so when the next day I actually went on the road to visit in person the Teacher of the Year and the Service Person of the Year, and then continue going to your neck of the woods, Miss White. But when we visited with Miss Kirkpatrick, she was the same ball of energy we saw virtually. As a matter of fact, she did share a story, and if you meet her, she is about that tall. She's not very big, and she had to show me the scar that ran from her forehead to her nose, because when I asked her, "Do you actually get on the football field?" she went, "Yeah, let me tell you a story." And when they needed somebody to step in and show linemen how to do it, she was willing to do that. And she was just, I mean, just an epitome of who you want in your community to be that one caring adult. So she also, by the way, I figured, Miller, you may be able to help me. She, even though she got to visit you and I virtually, she does have one request.
Is that to meet the governor?
Yes, sir. She would like to come down, and she really would like to meet the governor. I said, I think that President Hall could make that happen.
We'll try.
Do we have Susie with us?
Ms. Lowther, if you could turn on your camera, I believe she's with you, and that way we would be able to interact. Can you turn on your camera for us?
The camera is on.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's move on to our other Teacher of the Year, and we will introduce her, and then we may be able to come back and speak to Ms. Kilpatrick. Is that all right? All right. Glasses. Okay, so the 2021 Teacher of the Year is Erin Anderson. She's a 5th grade teacher from Tennerton Elementary School in Upshur County. She's a 20-year veteran educator. She received her bachelor's degree in elementary ed from West Virginia Wesleyan and a master's in reading from West Virginia University. During the pandemic, she has longed to be back in the classroom with her children, and she says they are her purpose. She's a strong believer in the importance of building relationships with students inside and out of the classroom. She started a program called Movement Mondays, which is a mileage club that invites students of all abilities to run together, rain or shine. She believes this practice not only strengthens her relationships with her students, but it also builds a lifelong love of healthy habits. Even though she's a 20-year plus veteran educator, as I said, she still has excitement and passion and zeal for teaching. And she believes in her children and the important role that our schools play in their lives, especially those that are most vulnerable. And so, again, welcome, Ms. Anderson. If you can turn on your camera, and we will start with comments from President Miller Hall.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? No, she's not.
Yep.
Okay, good afternoon, and again, we, as the State Board of Education, and I'll give them a chance to ask you some questions. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for Upshur County. Thank you for the state of West Virginia. That's a high honor to be Teacher of the Year. That's terrific. That means you're one of the top teachers in the state of West Virginia, and that's great. Now, I'm gonna challenge you right now to help Fred Albert and I. We need to find some more teachers so we can to come to West Virginia so we can take care of some of these uncertainties in our classroom. So we're gonna challenge you to get that done. And again, you have truly made a difference. You make a difference. I knew in talking to you a few weeks ago, I can tell you make a difference. Any time a person shed tears when you talk about young people, then I'm just gonna put myself in your situation like you. I know you love kids. I can feel it because I feel the way you feel about young students. So continue doing what you're doing, and thank you for all you do for the state of West Virginia and for Upshur County.
Thank you.
Ms. Anderson, would you like to share a few comments?
I sure would. I prepared something just in case I was given a moment to speak.
I knew you would.
And I might cry again.
That's okay. It's okay.
All right. I'd first want to say thank you to the state board members and the Department of Education staff for recognizing me again today. Of course, I look forward to meeting all of you in person very soon. The past 2 weeks have been sort of a blur. And the past 6 months of this whole process, from winning at Tennerton Elementary to winning the state competition a couple weeks ago, have been just a time of appreciation and reflection on my career. I'm sure after speaking with Dr. Warren and Jennifer Schwartzfeger that the next 15 months will be a time for me to dive even deeper into my teaching philosophy. But what I know today is that I'm surrounded by the perfect people, the perfect support system for me. I'm overwhelmed with the outpouring of support that has come from my local community. What I know today is that I miss my students. I miss watching 28 of them filter into my room. I miss reading groups and math groups. I miss my kidney table. I miss grading papers, actual papers. I can also tell you that just because we've gone remote doesn't mean a student will not interrupt a lesson with a bathroom break. We had one this morning on our Teams call. What I know today is that teachers need their students. I guess I've named it our teacher identity. Superintendent Birch, that's going to be sort of my platform, I guess. Some call it the heart of a teacher. It's just who we are. When I'm in front of a classroom full of kids, or even half full of kids, or even staring at their heads on a Teams call, I am more me in that moment than any other time. And although I'm forever grateful, what I know today is that awards and big checks and a new car doesn't change me, nor will it define me. I am a teacher. I'm proud to be the 2021 West Virginia Teacher of the Year, and as I prepare to lead, I hope that you'll always see me as you see me today, vulnerable and hardworking, compassionate and authentic, covered in chalk dust with a rubber band bracelet. What I know today is that if you're patient and obedient, God will bless your socks off too. So thank you for giving me a moment.
Thank you for your comments. Any board members have any comments, questions?
So, Ms. Anderson, nice to see you again. Thank you for, and please send an extension to, a thank you to Dr. Stankus. It was a wonderful, wonderful, I know it was quick, and I know we did it outdoors, and we got to have your family there and your colleagues. I believe your board members showed up. It was a really special day the next day in person. But I will absolutely enjoy every time you bring up the teacher identity. When I met with the 5 finalists, I think it resonated. I believe your other 4 colleagues that were finalists are actually stealing that line from you. Mr. Nepper in the Eastern Panhandle has already used it with me. But it really did resonate that that idea of teacher identity and being in front of that class is just who you are. We couldn't be more proud. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. I am also going to be touching on very soon. I'm working on my national application, and I am touching on the issue of the decreased enrollment in teacher preparation programs, and sort of my take on that. And just a heads up, I feel like it starts right now. We mirror what we want to see, and so if we make our profession look attractive, rather than pinpointing all the negative things that can go wrong or will go wrong. If we make it attractive to not only kids but pre-service teachers, I think that it will take a while, but I think it will come around, and it starts right now with the teachers that we currently have. And so, like I said, that's coming very soon.
Questions, comments? Thank you for being a mover and a shaker, and I think you can get that done. And if you need any support, we got some people here that, Deborah Sutherland here wrote an article about teacher shortage, so we might be contacting you, okay?
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, job well done, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Anderson. You're welcome to stay on the call, but if you want to get off now, you're welcome to do that as well. And we do have Ms. Kirkpatrick, who has been able to join us. And again, such a wonderful and delightful visit we had to Gilmer County. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, welcome to the board. We've got members of the State Board of Education, Superintendent Birch, President Miller Hall, and of course members of the public here as well. First of all, thank you so much and congratulations. Any words you want to share with us?
Yes, I would like to thank Superintendent Birch, President Hall, the board members. Um, this has really been quite a couple weeks for me. Um, I'm truly blessed to be honored to be the Service Personnel of the Year. Um, it, it's just been kind of unreal. Um, everyone here in Gilmer County is very, very proud of me, and I'm very proud to be blessed to have this honor. I've driven the school bus all my life. I enjoyed the job. I enjoy the kids. I'm not even sure what else I would have done. Um, 36 years, 40 years ago, I subbed for 4 years before I actually got on. My kids were little. So I am truly blessed to have this job and to be able to help kids along the way. You know, as a bus driver, you're the first one to see those kids in the mornings. You're the last one to see them of the evenings. You know what's going on a lot of times with these kids that others don't. And maybe that's part of it is why I enjoy it so much. But in a small rural county like this, everybody knows everybody, and if there's a need, we take care of it. I take a lot of the athletic kids on their trips. That's always a fun time. Sometimes, you know, we have class trips. I get to do that also. I really, really do enjoy that too. And I serve as the football trainer. I love doing that. And the football boys are winning this year, so that's always a plus. So, but oh my goodness, I just, I don't know what else to say, but I just thank you guys, Mr. White, and also thank him, Service Personnel, the association, and I don't know. I also want to speak a little bit about Bus for the School Bus. It's a training tool we use here in Gilmer County. Me and another bus driver take it out to the two schools, and we train the little people with that. It's magical. It's really a big deal here too, and I enjoy that so much. But thank you so much for everything. The last couple of weeks, it's been a trip.
Susie, I want to thank you for those comments. Thank you for those comments. And the Board of Education and state boards said the job well done. I'm going to say something a little different to you, getting feedback. But anyway, when I was principal, you know who my top assistant was? Was a bus driver. And then they didn't never enter the building, but they were a service personnel. See, a service personnel he was like my father figure. I was young, just starting off, and he helped me tremendously. The same thing that you are doing, the same thing you are doing, you're helping the young people. You made a comment, you see them the first thing in the morning and the last thing in the afternoon. And you are doing a wonderful job. So you are cut between a teacher, a bus driver, a doctor, a lawyer, a coach, EMT. You do it all. So again, you are a perfect storm, and we are so proud of you for what you are doing. So congratulations on being one of the tops in your profession in the state of West Virginia. And no matter what the profession is, when you're tops in the state of West Virginia and when you're doing what you're doing and you're helping our young people, helping our schools to get where it needs to go, you need to be recognized. Keep up the good work. And I didn't come to visit you, but we're going to come and see you and then just spend a day with you. And I'm going to close by saying this. And to thank Joe White. You mentioned Joe White. Joe White, evidently, he came with superintendent to visit you. So that's tremendous. And I'm going to say one last thing to all the board members. When I watched her home video and she was talking, you know where she was at? She was on the football field, helping those young people, coaching them, and if they got hurt, she was taking care of them the same way she does when she takes lunches up the holler from her bus to her young people. You didn't know I knew that, did you? But I did because I saw all of it on you in a video. Thank you and job well done. Board members, you have anything else you want to add, take away? Okay.
Susie, this is Superintendent Birch, and I just thank you for the visit. Please extend a thank you to Superintendent Lowther. Again, so gracious. What a wonderful event. It was so nice seeing your family. And even though, I enjoyed your stories, I really, really enjoyed the stories of you being on the football field. I haven't even gotten into the stories of her summertime job. And I don't want to steal her thunder of how she stole a bunch of coolers from maybe a whitewater rafting company to help her county out. But, it's funny, Susie, that you just, I've done a lot of speeches to teachers and whatnot on who you remember and who makes the most impact on you. And I've always talked about two individuals. One is my kindergarten teacher, Miss Dite, and the second is my bus driver through entire elementary school was Mr. Mays. And you are correct. I saw him every morning and I saw him every evening. He was the last face and the first face I saw every single day. And I'm going to echo something that President Hall has said of all the finalists. The impact you're making there in Upshur County, it transcends across the state. It really does. It will be an impact on the entire state. So thank you, Susie.
All right. Thank you very much, both to Ms. Anderson and Ms. Kirkpatrick, and also to Ms. Lett. And that concludes our recognitions for today.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you for that. Okay, item number 5 on the agenda. I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Scott Roadtruck. Broadband update.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll ask Tim Consett to come up to address us, please. He'll be joined by Josh Spence from the Governor's Office. As we all know, broadband is extremely important, not only to education, especially as we discovered in the COVID experience, but also to telehealth, telemedicine, and to economic diversification in the state. There's some good news going on right now with the FCC, and we'll get updated on that, and also updated on Kids Connect, the program that is still continuing, as I understand, Tim. So welcome, and thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for being here, President Hall, Superintendent Birch, members of the board. I have to apologize for Josh. He had something come up and had to step away, so he's not going to be able to join us. But he's been involved in a lot of our conversations, and he's even been involved in a couple of conversations with you. So it's pretty much all out there. This is more of observations that we've discovered over the past several months. We've all known that the broadband issue across the state in regard to education, particularly, that's our world, it transcends many other features, but it became blaringly aware to us in March when we had to go to remote learning. And several issues face the state of West Virginia. We are a very mountainous state. You're either on the top or you're in the valley, and getting from one point to the next can be very difficult, whether it's by mode of transportation or by beaming a signal or whatnot. But broadband mostly exists in the state in more populous areas, and there are of course business rules or business reasons for that. And even in those areas that have broadband deployed, when you get out onto the fringe areas of those networks, the broadband degrades, the service, the signal degrades, and so we have not the greatest quality of internet access in some of those areas. It's just the nature of the beast. So we know that problem exists. The business model has been met. Primarily, these are private industry that go out and deploy these broadband networks, and for the most part, their business model has been met. So, what is the issue for us, or what are the things to face us? And the long term is, of course, extending that broadband service. What is that going to take? That's going to take money. We have to make a justification for that deployment. We have to make that's part of what we're all having to deal with. Again, as I said, primarily the business model for those providers has currently been met. So what is it going to take to get them? There are several pots of money that the federal government has provided that will supplement, in most cases, a supplement to build out that network, to help eat the overcost of building those networks is what it's going to take to make this happen. As you'll recall, a month ago approximately, and forgive me, my time frame got with the last bit, the governor announced an executive order aimed at gaining access to about $766 million worth of money. And this is through a reverse auction program that is supported by the Department of Agriculture, rural development funds that are available. And essentially what has to happen is they make guarantees to provide that this process will occur, and independent contractors, independent vendors will go out and bid on areas of the state that they will then deploy. And they have to make commitments to deploy, and they have to meet deadlines within a time frame to essentially provide internet access to these areas in full. And so that's on the move. The reverse auction that they call it is scheduled, and there are several people that are qualified to do so, 5 of them that are qualified to do so at this point in the state. So there's some excitement there. But the problem is that's going to take time. Again, due to the nature of the state, it's not easy to drag fiber from point A to point B in a lot of cases. We don't have a lot of flat territory to make that happen. If some of you have traveled the turnpike recently, you've noticed some construction going on the side of the road, and the orange hose that's laying along the side, that's called interduct, and that's the fiber that is being built by Facebook that's running from Virginia to Columbus to connect to data centers. And we do get access, or the state will get access to, our industry essentially will get access to some of the pairs of fibers that are, some of that fiber that's in there that they are not going to use. That's been a commitment from Facebook to do that. So there's excitement, there's things that are happening. Of course, over the course of the last several months, we've been trying to find alternatives. What can we do in the immediate? We've had an issue. We've had a need. Getting access for kids to do virtual learning. Some of the alternatives that we've run across, and some of the things that are coming. SpaceX, Tesla, SpaceX, the people that are launched. So they have a project called Starlink. Starlink is going to launch approximately 12,000 satellites in what they call low Earth orbit. And their goal is to provide urban quality fiber access across satellite reception. And it is targeting urban areas, particularly areas of rural areas, not urban areas, I'm sorry, rural areas, much of the state. They will be doing testing, public testing later this year. You can go to their website and sign up and try to participate. Along that same line, Amazon has launched Project Kuiper, which will be a similar situation. So we've got 2 fairly large players that are deploying this. Will it work? They're still in testing phases. So there are some issues there too. Fixed wireless is another solution that vendors can provide, where they will get fiber to a particular location and then beam even further on to cover a larger area. Again, that's going to require fiber deployment across the state in various areas. And we're all in the world of 5G communications now. That's the big phrase right now from mobile carriers, and 5G deployment is also growing across the state. Those are longer term solutions, though. Again, that's going to take time to build out that infrastructure and those networks. What about short term? As you're all aware, in August, Governor Justice announced the Kids Connect initiative, which we put together. I think beyond what it did, I think the bigger thing that we need to point out about this, it was quite a tremendous effort between public and private entities. We worked with Josh, who is not able to join us, but with Josh's group in the Office of Technology. as well as three competing partner or entities, three vendors across the state, Advantage Technologies and CityNet and Alpha Technologies, all came together and we were able to come to an agreement about what it would take to make this happen. And so it was an awesome experience. We had regular meetings. The conversation was open and flowing. And, if one person had an issue, the other company could step up and say, yeah, we've solved that. Here's how to do it. And we moved on. It was a great experience. We were able to basically get this thing deployed by the start of school as we were charged. Lots of long hours, but we're able to pull it off. We're also expanding some of that as things come in. So it's not perfect. I think it is going to prove itself. It is an effort to provide more, convenient locations for kids who don't have, and staff for that matter. We have a problem with staff that don't have internet access as well. So it'll provide more locations for these students and staff members to get to a site. We've got a statewide help desk that if there are issues, they can call the help desk number. And if that site happens to have a particular issue, they can be directed to another site that might be 2 miles or 4 miles away. So again, it's not perfect. It's a very good attempt, and I think it will prove itself. We keep looking, we keep helping. We can't deploy broadband, but we can certainly make our voice known and try to get input and communication with people that have a say in the matter and make our points known and make our efforts as broad as we possibly can.
Tim, that's a great overview, and thank you for your work. I know it's been endless on the part of you and your colleagues to try to do everything possible to make certain our students do have the best opportunity to have access. And it's a question not only of availability, but of affordability. And you can be a technology user, but a technology learner, being able to learn virtually. There's a whole lot we can do. And West Virginia doesn't have a monopoly on this. It's across the country. But I do believe that our state has a wonderful opportunity. If you heard recently about Brad and Lee Smith and their incredible $25 million gift to West Virginia to try to promote remote working, and they're teamed up with Greg Corio and folks in Venture, West Virginia. But that is going to help us bring broadband into the state, connecting the needs of telehealth, telemedicine, of education, of economic diversification through enlarging our digital interconnectivity is really important. The governor, in his executive order, Tim, as I understood, what he did was he helped de-risk getting and being able for West Virginia to get the FCC money, which will be available, which is 13% of the money allocated for the United States. So there's some real good news here. We just are going to have to carpe diem. We're going to have to seize the opportunity, and you and your colleagues are doing everything possible to help us do that. So, Mr. President, open up for questions if there are any of Tim.
Any questions, concerns? Deborah?
Thank you. It's really impressive to hear what steps have been taken and how you've used not just state resources, but national resources and connecting all sorts of people. And I know it's been a labor of love for you. It's taken a lot of time, and it's paying off. And I guess that's what I would like to hear from you, if possible. The impact of let's just look at the Kids Connect. Are you getting information that would demonstrate the usage, the level of use at these various sites, in terms of student use, staff use, parents, whatever?
Yes. We do have the ability to provide that. The system that we deployed it maintains all of those metrics, and we will be producing those at some point. We're still trying to formulate and we've got it built, it's running, it's working. We do have usage that we can see. As far as producing metrics, that's one of the next steps, that we'll begin to produce metrics on usage and so forth. So, yes.
But your gut reaction?
I think it is making an impact. Yes,
okay.
Ma'am. One of the things to note that it is, it is primarily an educational tool. It's not, it's set aside for our students. It is intended for K-12 and higher education students, and it will be, it's pretty much restricted to that. So it is protected. It is, various sites are limited. They can't log on and stream Netflix all day long and so forth. So we're trying to make sure that we're not impacting the local networks in those sorts of things, but making it available. I don't want to diminish it, but it's like a drive-by internet connection so that I can pull in and download resources and assignments and then be able to go back and upload my homework and so forth and so on. So it is making an impact. We are, the first couple of weeks that it was out, it was amazing the number of calls that we got. It was like, hey, wow, I had a staff member in my office that their internet was out one evening and an assignment was due for one of their children. He said, I just drove 2 miles down to the school and I was able to get connected and their son uploaded their homework and it was all great. So yeah, it is making an impact. I think, one of the other points that I would like to make is, part of this, the Kids Connect project, and it gained some notoriety. There was an article published in GovTech magazine or publication, and that prompted another call that I had last week, and it was with a working group, a gentleman out of North Carolina, and was very interested in what we did, what we were able to do, and so I'm not sure whether we're going to be able to connect up again, but he's got a working group that I think it could be an important context for us. The point being that the more people that we can get together, the people that are out in other areas that are working to do this, that have the ideas to pull these public-private relationships together to try to extend the things that we need to do in order to accomplish the task before us. And I think that's what it's going to take.
Okay,
Any other comment, question?
if I could.
Yes, ma'am.
Just thinking about the diversity of our state. You talked about the terrain. Do you feel that some of our most rural mountainous areas, for example, Monroe County, do you feel that our more remote places are getting equitable access at this point with the Kids Connect or other opportunities?
That's probably a hard question to answer. The whole premise behind the Kids Connect network was to take advantage of existing resources, and that's with our schools. So we were really, and then we added in, some state parks and most public libraries. So it was really dependent on where those specific facilities existed. We certainly know that, a Randolph County that is a large geographic area, or several counties we have that large geographic area with a smaller population, and so those are going to be a little harder to touch. But we're trying to make as many efforts as we can to expand. We're trying to consider some situations where there may be another entity that we can take advantage of to help break the distance. If there's 25 miles between two schools and those are the only two sites that are there, that perhaps there is a middle point that we can connect to, and we're trying to look at those areas as they come in and they make known.
Tim, if I could add to that in response to Deborah's, right now the FCC program has approved 5 companies in West Virginia, about 386 in the nation applied, and they'll be laying fiber. But there's also, as Tim had mentioned, new technology that's coming out that may be really positive for West Virginia. Facebook's their first billion customers came in 2013. Their second billion, only 41 million were from North America. The rest of them went for around the world. So to get people connected around the world, it bodes well for us. New technologies are being developed, from low orbiting satellites to high-flying balloons. There's now a solar plane that's at 62,500 feet, a drone, if you will. So there's new technologies. They may help us connect folks like in Monroe County, where it's really hard to stretch a business plan across older technologies. But it is a hopeful scenario. And I think with the focus of Brad and Elise Smith and what they're doing, what John Chambers has been doing with Startup West Virginia, all these things working together, I think really bodes positively. And finally, there is a tremendous amount of money available that a higher level of awareness will help us access. There was just a $10 million grant from the USDA, one of those pots of money, in Preston County to lay fiber by Prodigy. So there's good news. We just have to really seize today, and a lot of people working together. And Tim, can't thank you enough. Thanks for being with us. Great presentation. Dave, you have a question?
Dave.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mr. President. Tim, just for our streaming audience, what's that phone number for the help? I need help. What's the number?
Just a second.
Sorry. Just for our streaming audience.
Sorry, Dave, we should have had that. Sorry about that.
Huh? Sorry.
Good question. Hey, Deborah, add another one while Tim's getting at. Just in the new book, Weapons and Tools by another Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft, they're looking at the white space in the TV spectrum as available. I mean, the technology barriers are really being pushed now, and we can be in the middle of it. We really can.
So I apologize. As I said, it was built around, one of those, it's 866 K12 Wi-Fi or 866-512-9434. And that's for the Kids Connect Network.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other comments, questions? Again, thank you, Tim, and thank you, Scott.
Just for the streaming audience, President Hall, there is a web link for Kids Connect. It is now, if I'm not mistaken, Tim, it is now searchable. It's in a GIS map. You can actually go in, zoom into your county, and actually find the exact location down to the address of where a public Wi-Fi network is. So using Monroe County as an example, we can actually zoom right in there. If you click on any of them, it'll pull up the exact location, especially I know Tim is working on the state park. Some of them are very large, so exactly where do I go for the public Wi-Fi? The other thing is I just want to note, I want to thank Chancellor Tucker isn't here. Kids Connect includes every single campus for higher education, both 2 and 4 year. So even our K-12 students, it is open to them and vice versa. And then most recently, General Hoyer and the National Guard have added all 20 armories in the state of West Virginia are now open to Kids Connect, and they're now on the map.
Thank you, Superintendent Birch. If you go to your agenda, item number 6, consent agenda, can we get a motion to approve?
Mr. President, may I ask a question
sorry.
about the consent agenda?
Okay.
Or do I do that after the motion? Or
After the motion.
okay, I'll wait.
Can I get a motion to approve? Okay, second? It's been properly moved and second, consent agenda be approved. Is there a question on the motion, Dave?
Under B1,
B,
West Virginia Department of Personnel Matters. I don't have that attachment in front of me. Mr. Superintendent, could you familiarize me with those names? And
I can put it up.
sorry, guys.
That's okay.
No.
I'll pull it up.
I can put it on my computer.
I think one of them's Linda Lett. Does that sound right? Lori Witt, I'm sorry. That was
Lori
off.
Witt. Yes.
Who is leaving the department. Where is she relocating to?
Kanawha County School.
Okay. And then there was an employment, I think, of a person who, for counting. I think it's the last one on the attachment. No, for employment, was it retirements? 3 retirements, okay. And I also understand Terry Harless left Friday.
He did.
Where is he going?
He is retiring.
Retiring, okay, thank you. That's my questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other
Oh, there it
questions?
is. Thank you, Dave. I was actually waiting for that to come up so I could look at Dave and answer. Yeah, Lori Witt, and 3 retirements that we had ready for this agenda. You were correct.
I was telling Virginia, I have trouble pulling up the attachments on my old computer system, believe it or not.
The question I had on that is, are you planning to replace all of those positions? Or is that someplace you can?
No, I think that Scotty Ford is a replacement for certification. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think that David Tigner is one that they have requested to replace, but the other 2 have not been requested to replace.
Deborah?
Thank you. I have a question on item 2 under the consent agenda, waivers of state board policy.
Okay.
Earlier, Clayton, you mentioned in the beginning remarks about the seniors being used for substitute teachers, which is an excellent program. Is that what this expedited pathway is in 5202?
Yes, ma'am. That is actually what addresses allowing us to expedite them straight to a substitute teacher.
Okay. And it's a good thing, obviously. Is this something that you and the staff would imagine considering putting in 5202? I mean, I know it's coming up today. It's on. It's open for comment, I guess, starting today if we approve it to go. But the question is, would it come now, or do we have to wait?
We actually, to be really honest with you, Ms. Sullivan, we looked at this as an emergency situation right now. Wanted to be able to waive that to make it available. And I think that further discussion with the board would probably be the appropriate way to go, that if it works out, do we want to look at that in the future?
Okay, so we won't make any change to 5202 now
On this particular.
on this particular one.
I don't believe so. Am I correct on that?
Yes, that's correct. I was confirming with Michelle as well.
so-
The idea would be that this is kind of an emergency situation.
Okay.
So we want to use this in this emergency situation. We'll kind of monitor it to see if it's something that we want to permanently do. But right now, the discussion internally was that we did not want to make it a permanent change to the policy, but rather utilize it during this extraordinary time period and then monitor to determine whether we wanted to include it.
So is it really a waiver to the policy, or is it an addition to the policy? You know, I guess I'm used to looking at waivers very differently than the way this one is presented. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, it's just that I'm worried, me and words, is waiver really what this is?
It is, and we did look at each of those provisions very carefully. We do want the individuals, when they are present in our public school classrooms, to have licenses issued so that we can make sure that they do have the minimum requisites and that they have the appropriate background checks. You know, that's something that with my office I'm always very concerned about. So we need to get them a license, and in order to do that, they will not meet each of the terms of the policy as is currently written. So we have specifically listed each of the waivers, and you can see that those are a lot about, and we have somebody in the back of the room who can talk about it more effectively than me, but to do a lot with clinical experience that will not have been met. So those are being waived to issue the temporary license for this time period.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we're actually putting this in policy? No. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Questions? I have a question about, it's 4110 attendance. The question I have, I understand what it's saying, the waiver, which is good. Have we looked at any data so far to see what the attendance is looking like? I know virtually you got in person and some people got remote, so can I get some data? Can we?
4110. He's right.
Attendance.
He's correct.
Yes, it's a waiver.
Mhm.
It's a waiver. 4110 attendance.
Mhm.
4110. It's an attachment. I don't know if you got it. You don't have the attachment. It's 4110 and the attachment.
just for our public, I'll just very quickly. 4110 is the attendance policy. We are looking at section 3.1. It's defining absence as not being physically present in the school facility for any reason as modified, and will read as follows: absence, not being physically present in the school facility, or failing to engage in virtual or remote learning for any reason. We have so many children in our virtual and remote learning that we had to have a mechanism of how we're going to calculate attendance. I think you have been very clear from the beginning on accountability purposes that we would have to take a look at this during the year. But we do have mechanisms in the virtual school program to look at attendance. Remote learning gets a little more complicated, so we are relying on teachers to work with us on how that engagement looks.
So I guess my question, have we gotten the data so far to show the kids are coming to school or not coming, or they're on virtual or not coming, remote, I understand, but we have any data thus far from the districts to show, is it been effective, this waiver or
Yeah,
data?
President Hall, we have our first collection going on right now, so
Okay.
we're 1 month in.
Okay.
And we'd be glad to take a look at that.
Okay.
We are running the numbers of actual students in the system. I will report, if this is not the appropriate time, I apologize. We are about 9,000 students down.
Wow.
So we can talk about that later, but when it comes to attendance, we absolutely will be running a separate report on in-person, virtual, and then the hardest we will try to bring to you is remote.
Okay, we can wait till next month to get that. I mean, I'll probably jump the gun, because the second month report,
Yep.
I think what you usually use, but anyway, maybe I'll jump the gun. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, none heard, it's been properly moved and second that the consent agenda be approved. All those in favor say yes.
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 All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, motion carries. What we're gonna do, because when we go down to the next item, is new business. It's approximately, what time is it, Derek, on your? 12:42. We're gonna convene back at 1:15. Give us a chance to get lunch, then we'll come back at 1:15, and we'll finish out the agenda at 1:15. Prompt, 1:15. Thank you for listening. 1:15. Thank you for coming back and being prompt. If you have your agendas in hand, we go into item 7, under new business, Amy Willard.
Thank you, President Hall, members of the board. My name is Amy Willard, and I am the School Operations Officer for the department. I came into my new role with school facilities at an exciting time, which was during the home stretch of this 10-year CEFP process. So as you are aware, WVBE Policy 6200 requires all county boards of education, the multi-county vocational centers, and I believe the West Virginia School for the Deaf and Blind to develop a 10-year comprehensive educational facilities plan that addresses their facilities needs. Approval of the 10-year CEFP is required before a county can be considered for funding by the West Virginia School Building Authority. And the CEFPs that have been in place were for the 2010 to 2020 timeframe. So the ones being brought before you today for approval are for the period of 2020 to 2030. WVBE Policy 6200 outlines the process that all county boards of education must follow when developing their 10-year CEFP. The process requires input from citizens and staff within the county in the initial planning stages, and also requires a public hearing at the end of the process to allow the public to comment and have further input on the CEFP. The local county boards of education work closely with their architects during this process to determine their future facility needs and the cost estimates for those, and to develop a financing plan to meet those needs during the 10-year period. The WVDE and the School Building Authority prescribed an electronic standardized format for all county boards of education to utilize when preparing their CEFP to ensure consistency in the format that we would have submitted to us. We have also, the two state agencies have developed a plan to jointly review all the CEFP submissions to ensure that the staff of both state agencies believe the CEFP to be complete under the provisions of Policy 6200 and the SBA Policies and Procedures Handbook prior to submission of any of these 10-year CEFPs to the state board for approval. For the agenda attachments that you will be getting over the next couple months as more counties submit these, we plan to include a brief executive summary that's prepared by my office, which identifies any proposed consolidations or closures or things that might be of interest to you all. And then also include a copy of 4 of the key sections from the CEFP. The full CEFP is a very lengthy document, so we wanted to give you just the key sections for you all to have to look over. So we're going to include section 16.1, which is translating educational needs, which is an overview section. 16.2, which is a building review of the existing buildings. 16.3, which is facility needs for moving forward, and 18, which is the financing plan. So today, based on the review of the facility staff in the Office of School Operations and Finance and the West Virginia School Building Authority, I recommend for approval the 2020-2030 CEFPs for Hampshire County Schools and Raleigh County Schools. And if you have any questions about their submissions, I have Tommy Young, who's our Director of Facilities, and Jerry Milliken, who has helped us with reviewing those, here to address any detailed questions that you might have.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Deborah?
First of all, Amy, thank you to you and your staff for putting together executive summary. I mean, that's, it brings up the high points that we would probably as a board be interested in. I just want to clarify, because this is my first time, I think it's most of our first time to look at this 10-year plan, to be in on this. So you, the department, and the SBA have worked together, and you've reviewed it, and you've made, so you're assuring us that everything that's in there is as it should be. They've followed the rules.
Yes, and Jerry and Tommy might be able to speak because they did more of the detailed review, but then they looked through the submissions to ensure that, everything that we have asked for them to include. All of the different sections are complete. If we felt they were deficient in describing something, we went back to them and asked them to make some changes. And then we met with the SBA, and we have standing kind of meetings scheduled between now and the end of the year as more and more of these come in. So it's already blocked off on our calendar to meet with them to just make sure that both staff feel like the submissions are complete.
And in our approving their CEFP, this has nothing to do with funding. This has nothing to do with saying that the SBA will be obliged. I mean, we're not doing that.
No.
Good, okay. And this is more of a policy, philosophical kind of question, and I don't know, Amy, if you'll be the person, but I'll ask it. At an SBA funds distribution meeting, I was disheartened when one of our most experienced superintendents, somebody who follows all the rules, learned that she had mistimed her application for funding for the SBA. And it had to do with the closure hearings. And that was actually the second time that came up. And I know I brought up in an SBA meeting, and maybe, maybe David Roach and the authority have been working with you, Mr. Birch, on this. But it would be really helpful to clarify the section in 6200, policy 6200, where it would outline, where there would be a timeline where people would know what they're supposed to do and when, if they're going to be requesting money from the SBA when a closure or consolidation is involved. And short of reworking 6200, which I don't think we want to do that right now, and sending it out, is it possible to put together some kind of guidance document, a checklist that, right now is the time the counties, the superintendents are working on these things. Is it possible to have a checklist that could be on their website at the SBA and on your website, and people could refer to that, and then the next time 6200 comes around, it could be worked in. I think it'd be a real benefit to our counties if
Right.
that would be done.
We have a separate policy, policy 6204, for school closures.
Right.
And the SBA has actually sent us over some recommended language, I think that would address some of your questions and concerns, to kind of put some stuff in there about if the county is going to be seeking SBA funding for one of the projects that's impacted.
Good.
And so, my plan was kind of get through this CEFP process and my state aid obligations on the finance side of my job, and then maybe tackle that, sometime in December, and maybe try to bring it to the board in January.
Well, I am not sure when the proposals go to the SBA. Is that December? Is it January? It'd just be nice, is it December? It'd be nice if something would be, it doesn't have to be real detailed, but just a checklist.
Right, yeah, we
so
can,
that this
I'm sure,
doesn't happen.
we can look at putting together something just to remind them of the timelines, and then tackle actually trying to change the policy, but to just give them the, kind of a time frame that they would need to follow.
If you could do that, thank you.
Superintendent Birch?
So actually, there is, I will say a couple things. One, glad to see Tommy in the audience. Full-time, first week, full back, love seeing you. Welcome back. Tommy and David Roach, and Jerry, they've all been great. They've been, the collaborations, just so the board's aware, David Roach has brought his staff over. On a couple occasions, we've been doing some meetings of how we want to move forward in the future a little bit better. Amy, I think Jerry was at the last one with us. So one of the things we talked about, and I might have maybe referenced Dr. Wilson and his ideas that, when we put things out, let's make sure there's always a companion document or something that's easy to follow, easy to read. So we were just chatting here that we'll make sure that that checklist is recirculated, but it also easily available too.
Tommy or Jerry, you have anything to add, take away? Are you finished, Amy?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just a quick question.
okay.
Does every county have this computerized by now, pretty much?
Yes, there's a software program that was procured by the department, and all counties are required to utilize it for the CEFP process. And that's how, Jerry and Tommy have been looking at the documents, is electronically.
Thank you, because I think that'll make it a lot easier for the counties, and I'm sure you all too.
It is handy to be able to log in from wherever I'm at and pull up a document.
Tommy or Jerry, you want to have anything to add, take away? Come on up, come on up, come on up, there, brother. You all right? Tommy, it's good to see you, brother. It's really good to see you. You made it back.
Most certainly don't have anything to add from Miss Amy, but I do want you to know that it's been a pleasure working with Tommy and of course Miss Amy. I've had a little bit of experience with this since '90 on the CEFP trail. And it's exciting to see the counties put together good educational plans to address their needs. And our first two out of the box, Hampshire and Raleigh, they've done a tremendous job with putting theirs together. Just a little bit of a minutia for you. I was Susie Kirkpatrick's director when she started.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you very much, President Hall. I appreciate it. Superintendent Birch and board members. First, I'd like to say thank you so much for notes I received while I was off. I appreciate that very, very much. Along with the CEFPs, what Amy was saying there. I always looked at it as a roadmap for the counties to take the great configurations and the curriculum that they want taught and put it into what she was talking about with facility needs into the facilities to be able to take projects to the school building authority for needs projects to possibly get funded on needs or MIPs. So it's a huge roadmap and helps them get a prioritized view of how they get there. That's the only thing I have.
Any other comments, Mr. Perry?
Amy, the software you're talking about, is that the software SBA and the department shared expenses for? Is that the
Yes, the
same piece of
SBA
software?
does help fund the software.
Okay, I thought I understood you to say that the SBA was part of this review process of these CEFPs.
Well, what they're reviewing them, we're reviewing them, and then we've agreed that it makes no sense for us to bring something to you all for approval to then find out that the SBA staff felt like something was lacking. So we've all agreed that both parties will review. They sent me a memo indicating that they planned to recommend this to their board, also recommend these to their board for approval before we bring them to you all. So we just kind of address any issues that might be in the documents submitted up front, and not have any surprises later.
So, and I also heard you say this is more a process review, correct? And adherence to policy or statute?
Yeah, we're checking. Jerry had developed a checklist that we go through, and we've asked the counties to go through and complete the checklist as well before they submit it to us, of just all the different documents that they have to have complete, copies of their legal ads to show that they had their public hearings. It's really kind of a policy compliance review, more so than a do we like some of their plans review. It's more, have they done everything they need to do, and did they do it in accordance with our policy?
So theoretically, we could approve them, and then when it went for SBA, they could reject them for money based on something that was or was not in their CFP, or was in their CFP.
Right, yeah,
CEFP.
if the SBA doesn't like one of the projects that they're proposing, then I'm assuming that the SBA staff would not recommend it for funding. But I don't know that necessarily means that we should reject their CEFP now, because that's
Right.
what they've come up with locally with their community, is what the best plan is for their county moving forward.
I guess that's what I'm saying. Our review is for procedural
I believe so, yes.
and policy. Okay. Then Clayton will appreciate this. How thick is that CEFP?
Well, it's not as thick as it used to be,
Used
because
to-
I've seen the
used to look
huge
like two
binders
Bibles or
from the
five,
last
yeah.
time, but
Huh? That's it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What I did was just.
That was my question. Can we shorten it any more?
No. No.
I don't know that we can get it any shorter.
As you look at it and review it?
Yet we don't have to print it as many times now, so.
Thank you, and I commend you and Superintendent Birch for that. Always interested in reducing policies and reducing paperwork.
Yep.
You sound like me, Mr. Perry.
Any more comments, questions? I'd like to make one comment. I want to thank all this department. Thank you, Amy. You have a new role and function and responsibility. And what I like about Amy is she takes it and she runs with it. And that's what I like. That's what we like.
Thank you.
And now, one more question. The process we're using now with the SBA and the department all working together, is that a better process than what we used to have?
Well, I mean, I don't know what we used to do since I wasn't.
So the answer is yes.
Well, may I answer that to some degree since I've got 8 years on this board?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm thrilled to hear the collaboration. To me, in my memory, Dr. Wilson seems to be shaking his head. We're the two old. We won't say what, Jim. We're both like right here when we started. But I continue to encourage and be impressed with collaboration. That saves so much time, so much energy, so much cost, so that the resources can be directed to the children. So that would be my perception from being on the board for 8 years and serving on the SBA as well.
Any other questions? Thank you. Well, you do though. You got a motion, right? You have a
Yes,
motion?
I'm asking you to approve the Raleigh and Hampshire CEFPs.
Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Is there a second? It's been properly moved and seconded that Hampshire and Raleigh counties 2020, 2030 CEFPs be approved. Is there a question on the motion? None heard. It has been properly moved and seconded that Hampshire and Raleigh counties 2020, 2030 CEFPs be approved. All those in favor say yes.
Yes. Yes.
All those in favor say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have on the 7B, we have, is it Charlene Colburn, policy 4110, attendance.
Good afternoon, President Hall, Superintendent Birch, board members. I'm bringing policy 4110 to you to consider for public comment. It's being revised to comply with House Bill 206. This revision will eliminate the requirement for attendance directors and principals to serve written notice to parents after 3 and 5 days of unexcused absence of students. Instead, principals and attendance directors will make meaningful contact with parents, and they will also reach out to any guardians to determine the reasons for the unexcused absences. In making this meaningful contact, the hope is that we will be able to provide more supports to students. It's in alignment with the House bill, and I think that it will assist in improving attendance in West Virginia. Now, in addition to this, parents will also be required to submit the documentation for absences within 3 days of an absence. This will assist principals and attendance directors with maintaining records and determining if there are potential issues with students who could potentially become chronically absent. And then also in this revision, we are adding some language to the definition of absence. At the current time in our policy, it says that absence is not being physically present in the building for any reason. And due to the fact that we have students who are learning remotely and distantly, we are changing that definition to include that language as well. And then there are some clerical and typos that have been addressed and just some clarification of language. Do you have any questions?
Questions? Deborah? Somebody else want to go first? No, you go first. I have one.
I'll go first. First of all, some broad comments, Dr. Coburn. Many thanks again to you and your staff for working not only with yourselves, but with your external stakeholders to tighten up the policy to strengthen the language, it's well done. And I understand that you were directed by House Bill 206 to
Correct.
include the meaningful
Correct.
contact. So that's all good. One thing I really liked is that in terms of accountability, it puts puts focus on specific roles. There's the attendance director, the assistant attendance director, and there's the principal.
Correct.
So
Yes.
each of those individuals have specific duties now, right?
Yes,
That they're
yes.
expected. Meaningful contact, words.
Right.
What would you consider?
The guidance that we are providing is that that would be a conversation with the parent. So after 3 days, instead of using postage and time to write a letter, and, this is going to be a savings cost for districts as well, someone will be talking to that parent, at a minimum, attempting to reach that parent. I know at times it can be a struggle to have contact, but reaching out in any way possible to have a conversation, whether it be through a phone, it could be an email if they have access to that. It could also be a situation where the social workers could be helping out with this, communities and schools. So we have multiple ways to reach out to parents. But it is the responsibility of the principal and the attendance director to do that. But we have means to have a conversation with them to determine what the authentic problem is that's causing the student to be absent. Because many times we have access to resources that we can provide them to support them, as opposed to just mailing a letter saying your student or your child has been absent for 3 days or 5 days. We want to actually make contact with them.
So it's a
To help.
proactive approach.
Yes.
And I think your word right there, help.
Right.
Is what I feel underlies the whole policy now.
Right.
That you want kids to be in school. It's not a gotcha kind of thing. However, there is a statement in there about judicial involvement at a
Yes.
certain point. And I know that Putnam County actually has a wonderful judge out there who gets real involved with truant students. So could you talk
Right.
a little bit about the judicial expectations?
Well, after 10 days, they can seek that. But the thought behind this, I believe the intent of the legislature, and I know the people in our office, is that we want to provide meaningful support before that happens. But in some cases, that's not possible. And then that's when we turn to the judicial system to assist with that. And each attendance director in our county, most of our attendance directors have good relationships with the people in the counties that work at that level to reach out to them.
Mr. Perry?
You answered my question.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? I have a question. And I've been around this all my life, and attendance is, sometimes you make a home visit and the big old dog greets you.
True.
Okay? Have you running for your life, so I understand.
Sure. And you can run.
I can run, okay. Anyway, it says in this policy not to suspend truancy students, but yet we suspend. In other words, what I'm saying is this: I'm truant for 10 days. You get me back in school, I'm truant another one, and then you send me home for 5 or 10 days. How are we gonna address that?
Well, I believe the intent is that if a student is truant, we're not going to punish you for being truant by suspending you.
That's what's happening.
Right. Well, it's not supposed to happen according to the policy.
It's happening. So, and I hear what you're saying, and I agree 100%. I won't tell you my story, but I agree with you 100%. But how are we gonna be able to function when I'm truant, come back, and you send me back home? And I said, thank you. So how do we know? How can we monitor that?
That's why monitoring is very important. That's true. And, we meet with the attendance directors regularly and provide them with guidance and support in an attempt to circumvent that type of situation, for sure. I think it's important to build those relationships. You know, Superintendent Birch talks all the time about how it's so important to have that one meaningful person in your life, an adult that's making a connection. I think we have seen improvement in the research that we've read in attendance when someone cares about the student, and it's our responsibility to make our school environment open and conducive to learning and have an environment where students want to be there. I think that's half of the battle, being able to provide the supports and an environment that
Okay.
is conducive to that, as opposed to suspensions.
Well, here's another concern. And I understand the school system, I understand that kids getting tardies, it's tardy after tardy. After you get so many, you need to go through the steps, and then one step is you get sent home. I mean, that's something we're gonna have to monitor because it happens. Are they in a tough position? Yes, you don't wanna
Right.
see everybody tardy all the time, and some of them get tardy so they can get sent home. So how do we monitor that?
Well, part of the way we monitor that is through our West Virginia scorecard in our accountability system, is that suspensions, when we look at being present, you're present if you're in the building. If you are suspended, you're not in the building. So that does count
Okay.
against our schools, and that is a way for us to monitor it. One way for us to monitor it, by being held, schools that suspend a lot of students are held accountable through that West Virginia scorecard as far as the accountability.
And my last question, I
Results go.
promise you. What if it says in here counseling those students who are tardy, counseling those students who are truancy? Are we gonna provide counseling? I think it
Yes.
says in this policy.
Yes, counselors should be providing that, teachers should be providing it, our communities and schools contacts who are in the building can be providing it, social workers. A lot of our federal programs money, our Title I funding is supporting social workers in our schools. So adults in the building should be counseling those students
Okay.
to assure that we are providing them supports, to encourage them to be present as opposed to being absent.
Thank you for your report. Any other comments or concerns? Those are just some concerns, and I know it's
Sure.
tough. I've been where they've been. I've been
Yeah.
there. I've been there.
They are
1,800
legitimate.
students, and they tardy, they truant. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not gonna tell you what I did, because the newspaper man here, he'll go back and put it in the paper, okay? So I'll leave it alone. But anyway, thank you for what you're doing, and,
Statute of limitations probably expired, Mr. President. You're probably okay.
No questions? Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, I would recommend that this policy be posted for public comment for 30 days.
I would so move.
okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been properly moved and second that policy 4110 be placed on comment for 30 days. Is there a question on the motion? None heard. It's been properly moved and second that policy 4110 be placed on comment for 30 days. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carried. Thank you, young lady.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir, brother.
I'd like to clarify when I said that I found out at lunchtime that when I said the president could run, I understand he was a star defensive end at Fairmont State.
No, I didn't tell him that. He must have read something.
Yeah, right. So anyway, we've got football prowess on several factors on this board, so I'm sure you've still got some speed under you.
Yeah, when it comes to kids, I still.
I'm sure you do.
Okay, this time, we're going to see, we're going to Margaret Wilson. Policy 5310.
Good afternoon, President Hall, Superintendent Birch, and members of the board. Thank you for allowing this time to discuss proposed revisions to Policy 5310. Policy 5310 is the policy on performance evaluation of school personnel. It is being amended to comply with West Virginia Code, and the change to code was that it removed the inclusion of school-wide state summative assessment results in the calculation of teacher and administrator summative evaluation scores. There are a few other changes as well. While the West Virginia School Counseling Model is still in place, this revision also removes language regarding the 2012 ASCA National Model. That model is no longer in effect. The impact of the proposed changes allows for greater ease of use by both professional personnel and athletic coaches, which the policy also addresses, and reflects current legislative requirements. There are some additional clarifications to language in the policy. There's a clarification to ensure that all teachers receive an evaluation in their first year of hire, regardless of the date that they are hired. There's also a reference included to WVBE Policy 2520.19, which is the West Virginia College and Career Readiness Dispositions and Standards for Student Success for grades K to 12. That was adopted in 2017. These additional changes to clarify language hopefully will provide greater ease of use for educators, allowing for more time for planning and engagement with students.
Questions? Deborah, go ahead. No, don't be shy.
Thank you, thank you. It's, once again, it's been a thorough job.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that when it's gone through again, there will be even more revisions, right? You made a comment just now, and it's in our little summary here, about the removal of the state summative results.
Yes.
Student results.
Yes, ma'am.
Student performance, though, is still included. Could you talk a little bit about that, please?
Absolutely. So the change that was made in legislative code was, if you look at the calculation, so there's an 80% calculation and then a 20% calculation. That 80% calculation did not change. That is the performance standard. So if you would look at the rubric for teacher evaluation, that's standards 1 through 5. The change was made to the configuration of the 20%. So previously, it was 15% based on standard 6, which are the student learning goals, and 5% based on the school-wide summative assessment results. So now that 20% is totally based on the student learning goals that are established by the teacher and the administrator.
Good, thank you. And also there are references to the professional conduct standards.
Yes.
Could you tell us what types of items might be included in those standards?
Yes, absolutely. So if you would like to look at the rubric, they are posted on the website. But it's things like, the time that you are coming to school, if you're coming to school on time, your interactions with students. And that particular standard is designed just a little bit differently. So it's not rated in the same way as distinguished, accomplished, emerging. It's more of a satisfactory versus unsatisfactory. And so it allows the administrator, if there is an issue that is concerning neglect of duty with students, those types of things, that it can be addressed with that standard.
And there are ways to address those types of issues speedily if it is some egregious action that has been taken on the part of a staff person. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. So we do have the professional conduct standard. So that's something that is an issue you feel like you can address over time, but it's also provided for in code that the county board has the option to address matters immediately. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Any other question, concern? Margaret, I think it's the first time, I've never met you before. Have any other board member met her before? Okay. So you might want to just go ahead and tell them where you, just take a second and tell them how long you've been here.
Yes, sir. I'm from Wayne County. I was a teacher at Spring Valley High School, and then I was principal at Eastland Elementary School.
Okay.
Is there more than that?
Wait a second. No. Margaret, when did you come to the department?
There'll be 6 years in November.
That is correct. So, before Dr. During left Kanawha County, Michelle Black's back there and Charlene, and they were working in the past with actually with Dr. Payne on how to reorganize school improvement and think about how to be that support that we wanted. And we really, Charlene and that accountability office and how we support, and we had just launched some of those that we put out. And Dr. During actually called because Margaret Williamson was our point person assisting Kanawha County, and he said, Clayton, I've been here a long time in Kanawha County, and that might be the first time I have ever felt like somebody came in and cared so much of how to help us. She's very, very good at what she does, very good at school improvement, but she does it with a very, very supportive, kind hand. And which is, if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking at Michelle and Charlene. Charlene, I'm looking at you. We let you run the team, and I believe she is now your school improvement director.
We just got
Thank
you a
you so
promotion.
much.
You didn't know about it. Okay. Again, thank you for being on this team, and we have a wonderful team, and I didn't know you, some other ones didn't know you, but welcome to the team.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
and thank you for those kind words.
Okay, so now, it looks like we need a motion.
Yes, a motion is requested to place policy 5310 on public comment for 30 days.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, then, can I get a second?
Second.
Been properly moved and second that policy 5310 be placed on public comment for 30 days. Is there a question on the motion? None heard. It's been properly moved and second that policy 5310 be placed on public comment for 30 days. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have caller one, Dr. Caller one.
So just real quick, we haven't seen Dr. Warren for a while, and let's just say you talk about somebody who has, I don't know, Carla, what's the best word to put you? Bury
sure
your
what
head
to
in the
go
work. She has actually been working with Chancellor Tucker and Cordy Dennison and Carrie Farrow, hit the ground running. I don't know if you heard this morning's announcement, but probably one of our leading people assisting us with the teacher recruitment and the substitute teaching, her, and she's gotten assistance from Robert Hagerman, but, and then I know you have been busy the month of September with Teacher of the Year and Milken and everything else.
It's exciting work. Thank you. Good afternoon, President Hall, Superintendent Birch, members of the State Board. It's good to see all of you again. It's been a few months. Today we are bringing forth revisions to Policy 5100, which is the approval of educator preparation programs, with a recommendation that it go out on a 30-day comment period. The preparation of educators eligible to apply for West Virginia licensure to work in West Virginia public schools is critical to the success of all students. This policy guides the institutions in creating and revising educator preparation programs and should always reflect the most up-to-date assessments available. Educator preparation is a cycle of continuous improvement. Requirements for preparation programs change and improve frequently. Assessments to better measure candidate knowledge improve, and methods which assess candidate competency are ever evolving. This revision took place over a 3-month period and included 39 stakeholders, which was a great group. The stakeholders represented staff from the Higher Education Policy Commission, from county systems, from the Department of Education staff, and faculty and staff from higher education institutions with educator preparation programs, including both public and private. Proposed changes are mostly minor and include language edits and formatting made throughout the policy, which include an appendices which has been condensed and relocated to a reference tab on the Office of Educator Development and Support homepage on the Department of Education site. Definitions were relocated to a definitions section in the back of the policy, at the end of the policy, and the policy was renumbered to reflect those revisions. All specific CAPE, Council for the Accreditation of Educator Preparation, all CAPE specific language was removed from the body of the policy and placed in that resource tab on the department site. This resource tab will be monitored regularly for accuracy to make sure that it stays updated. Language was added to create a pathway to allow EPPs, educator programs, choice to select a WVBE approved national accreditor, just making that pathway available for the future. In Section 5, language was added to provide the parameters for the West Virginia teacher residency model. If you recall, the policy already states that as of July 1st, 2021, with the freshman cohort, all EPPs that have WVB approved educator preparation programs have to provide a pathway for a year-long clinical residency. While that was already in the policy, the parameters were not. So we had heavy stakeholder input to develop what those parameters would look like, including curricular requirements for programs and content areas, clinical hour requirements, and programmatic level requirements. So those are in this revision as well. As a result, in Section 7, we clarified further the language to delineate between a teacher in resident and teacher residency to make that language clear. Language was added in Section 12.2 to add a non-voting, content-specific consultative member to the Educator Preparation Program Review Board. This review board is in Policy 5100, and the makeup of that group is very specific. However, there wasn't a content-specific member on that board. This board meets twice a year, and if an institution brings forth a program that they want to add or revise to their educator preparation program, then we have already consulted with Joey Wiseman and Monica Delamay and asked that they would provide us a staff member. So for example, if an educator prep program comes to the board and wants to propose a middle school science program for their educator prep, then we would go to Joey Wiseman's office and pull Jennifer Schwartzfigger and Erica Close, and they would be a member of that board for that program review. And they would help us define, make sure that the standards are aligned, make sure that the quality and the rigor and the content is sufficient for that program review. So that would be a transient member who would only be with us for that particular program review. In partnership with the Office of Certification, a companion document was created to house the listing of programmatic levels, exemptions, endorsements, and specializations. This was done to take some of the duplicity away from Policy 5202 and Policy 5100 so that we would not have duplicate information, but also to allow the opportunity to make appropriate edits and changes to those programs without having to open those policies up each time a program was changed. There's no cost associated with this revision. And as a result of this revision, Mr. Perry, the policy has been reduced by 38 pages, from 77 pages down to 39 pages. So I thank you for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, concerns? Deborah?
Thank you, Dr. Warren. This is a technical, dense policy for those of us who are just readers. And your explanation was so very well done, and I appreciate the work that has gone into this, and also the changes, and the collaborations, the partnerships. And I really like what you were saying at the end about pulling in department staff on those reviews. I do have a question, a concern, and it has to do with the definitions. You know, words, words, words. They are so important. And this is a point of discussion I think maybe the board should have at some point. Since they are board policies, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think we need to have a discussion at some point about where definitions go in a policy. My take is when you read a policy, it's not like reading a novel. It's reading a technical document, and your understanding of the document depends on your understanding of the words in the document, the definitions. And that's something that I think we can discuss at a later point. But my concern with this policy and others right now, because the definitions were moved from the front of the policy to the back of the policy, and there were, I counted, I think there were originally 30 definitions in the old policy, and now there are 40. But by moving all the definitions to the back, they're all underlined. Everything is underlined. Nothing is X'd out. Nothing. We don't have a sense of the changes to the definitions. So I would ask that when this goes out on comment, that the definitions be reinstated, I don't care where you have them right now, but that they be reinstated in their original way with the changes marked, so that the reviewers out there will know what has been altered, what's been added, what's been changed. So I would ask my board members if you would consider that we could amend the approval to have this kind of language put in so that that could be taken care of.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, I'm open to putting them wherever directed.
You saying yes, but we saying, what you talking over, man?
Well, I think Mrs. Sullivan is asking when it goes out on comment that we make an effort to, so that the public knows what definitions have been added. And they are definitions that have to do with the residency model, and Virginia will tell me how to do that.
Basically, by moving those to the new section, they have to be underlined. There's no way to show changes because they're basically new because of their relocation. The only other way to do that would to be somehow put it in the executive summary, which again, people may not read.
That comes to the front.
Yes, at the beginning.
Yeah, to me, it's an issue, and, policies are words, that's all they are.
Yeah.
And so they're very important, and any changes that have been made to definitions, any additions to, definitions or deletions, I think people need to know what they are.
I think it would be
Do it.
easy to add those to the executive summary.
Superintendent Birch?
So actually, you are correct, Ms. Sullivan. In most of all the code that we work with, the definitions are usually in the front of the code before you get into the code. And I will say, though, at some point in time, there was a decision by the board to put those definitions in the back. And there was a discussion, and we were told to put them in the back. So we can absolutely put them in the front where they need to be. We're always revising policies. I think we have a wonderful cycle now. I think they're all on a 5-year cycle we're working on. Jan Barth is going to be taking point on that, and we continually talk about getting consistent.
So can we, as a board, decide today that they belong at the front?
Yes? Absolutely.
I don't want to be out of line here, but.
I don't know that it would be a motion. I think you can just ask the department when you submit them to you all that that's where they be.
Let me ask this, so if we move, I'm sorry. If you move them to the front and put it out for comment, we don't have to look at it again. I mean, we can go ahead and request that you move them to the front, underline as Deborah has said, and go ahead and put it out for comment. Or do we have to wait till next month? I don't see it.
Just, I know Carla, I don't want to, make Carla sweat too much.
I'm good.
But, and she's very good at sweating. And she knows that by doing that, it'll be work on her part. She'll have to work with Virginia because we'll have to make sure the numbering is in sync. It'll change that, but we can put them there.
Before it goes, I mean, we're gonna put it out for 30
Before it
days,
goes
but
on
go out with the correction that we've asked for today, or
Yeah,
we've
that's correct.
suggested.
Yes.
I have one other question. I couldn't get to the back real fast, look at those definitions, and I didn't understand all those EPPs and BBBRs and so forth. What, are we gonna continue to use,
Well, the first time I said it, I spelled it out, but I probably was talking very quickly.
you were talking very quick for this old country boy, I can tell you that.
But I would be happy to
Right.
define anything that you have questions about.
Just tell me what it was.
Well, the Educator Program Review Board, the EPPRB.
Okay.
That is a board that meets twice a year to review any new programs or revisions of programs that are being proposed by an educator preparation program.
Okay.
By a college that has a teacher ed program.
A year or so ago, we proposed, and I don't know if it was about policy or what, and I've lost track of all this because I put great dependency on the department to follow through. And I forget from meeting to meeting what I said. Are we still on target to do the 3-year and 1-year associate teaching?
Well, we're working on that, absolutely, yes.
But that
Yes.
was a 3-year period that was supposed to be adopted, if I remember correctly, correct?
I don't know. I know that
How about-
that work falls under my office, and it is something that I'm working in. I've been working with Adam and Clinton Birch in Clayton's. or
Would you
in
be so
CTE.
kind to check on that,
I would be
please?
happy to. Yes, and we
You
have.
know what I'm asking.
I do. I know what you're asking. The 3+1.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Scott, anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, I think you need a motion, right?
Okay. Yes, we would request a motion that this policy 5100 go out on a 30-day comment period. That's inclusive of the change requested by the board.
Mr. President, I would move, subject to the revisions just discussed in regards to the definitions, that the policy 5100 be placed on public comment for 30 days.
Okay. It's been properly moved and seconded, the policy.
Can we get a second?
I thought you would second, okay. Can we get a second?
Go on, Deborah.
Deborah, okay, it's been properly moved and seconded, the policy 5110.
5100.
With 5100,
Yes.
with revisions, be placed on public comment for 30 days. Is there a question on the motion? None heard, it's been properly moved and seconded, the policy 5100 with revisions be placed on comment for 30 days. All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Opposed, say no? Yes, have, thank you.
Thank you.
Robert, you're next, Robert.
Good afternoon, President Hall, Superintendent Birch, members of the board. I come in front of you today with the policy 5202, which is the minimum requirements for the licensure of professional, paraprofessional personnel and advanced salary classification. The policy drives licensure and certification in the state of West Virginia for our classroom teachers, as well as some assignments of school personnel, which require licensure in order to be assigned to such positions. The policy, as you know, is an ever-evolving document because of not only the need of our classrooms, policy changes, related policy changes, as well as standards and preparation of teachers, which demands that the licensure reflects the common and best practices of these educators. So there's a series of proposed changes in this policy, which overall are overwhelmingly for clarification of wording and language throughout the policy, including the renumbering due to relocation of sections of the policy. And based on Dr. Warren's presentation and Mrs. Sullivan's request and your agreement to have the definitions in front of the policy, one of the changes was that the definitions were going to be moved to the back. Therefore, this policy also is going to have to be tweaked prior to going out. We're going to work with Ms. Harris to get that taken care of. So therefore, I just wanted to let you know that the executive summary, as you have it in front of you, would be a little bit different because those definitions will remain in the front of the policy. There were not many changes, if any, to the actual definitions. It was just a matter of relocation on 5202 as far as the definition section. Also, we have gone through the policy and removed some redundant language that appeared in 3 different policies in 5202, 5100, and 5901, therefore condensing the policy and reducing a significant amount of pages, Mr. Perry, for the policy. So that is going to streamline the document as well. We moved language that was redundant in many sections. It was repetitive. Therefore, we removed the repetitive language and we sort of addressed the same language throughout by referencing the original language instead of repeating the same language throughout. So that made the policy much clearer and also quite a bit shorter. In section 1, general, no changes. The definitions, as I mentioned, will not be removed. Will go back to the front of the policy. One of the major changes was the legal basis for licensure due to recent legislative changes where there were some provisions for actions taken against a license, immediate revocation of a license based on the offense. So the policy was edited, revised in order to reflect those changes. That is a reporting to NASDAQ for actions against a teacher license. Also updated language to reflect any and all legislative changes as they impact the licensure of an educator. Section 8, the requirements and dates of certain licensures. We had to also update the language in the policy because recent legislative changes provided the ability for non-U.S. citizens who are appropriately documented to be in the United States to work, have access to a license, a professional license, where before they were only eligible to have a permit. So we had to, throughout the policy, make revisions to that change to allow for properly documented individuals to receive a professional license. Also, one of the changes throughout the policy was to extend the decimal point of the GPA, where before we had it, for instance, as a 2.5. We extended it to a 2.50 in order to not run into issues with rounding up or rounding down of potential transcript overall GPAs causing discrepancies in different applications. Therefore, now it's more concise and clear what the GPA expectation is for any application for licensure. In licenses for professional educators, we included provisions for the use of accredited by, as defined by the state board, private school experience in order to be able to convert a license or renew a license or put a license in a different tier from 3-year to 5-year and so forth. Also in section 10 for permits issued for professional educators, we clarified the language throughout significantly, clarifying the eligibility for substitute permits, also adding options to those long-term substitute permits instead of, in addition to having the number of semester hours on a transcript, if they took and passed a appropriate content praxis, they could add an endorsement area to substitute teach in that area to help minimize the substitute shortage and the issues that we have, not only because of COVID, but in general terms, finding qualified educators. Also, we added language in a procedure to renew a new contractor, volunteer, and other school personnel certificate, which will allow counties to background check these individuals prior to them entering the building. So any adult who is in contact with students in our schools for any reason, even if they're non-school personnel, will have the option of the county requesting that they undergo a background check to obtain this certificate. We also added clarification in section 11 for the early childhood classroom assistant teacher, the ECAT, as far as the academic assessments to receive the credential. We also, in section 12, clarify the language for the eligible endorsements for grade expansion. What that means is former issued endorsements, for instance, grade 1 through 12. We now have K through 12 or pre-K through adult. Some of those are eligible via application to drop a grade level or add the adult level to their license. So we made clarifications. That was already an option, but we clarify how to obtain those. Alternative routes of certification, that section was pretty extensive, but it has its own policy, 5901, so we removed a lot of that language that it was repetitive and pointed to the correct policy, 5901, to prevent that duplication of language. Also, section 16 deals just specifically with non-United States citizens, so we made that clarification about the ability to qualify for a professional license with the proper documentation. In section 17, the assignment of an educator to a particular position, we added clarify the criteria for individuals to serve as substitute via the provision of possessing a clinical permit or a long-term year-long residency permit, meaning that once they complete the experience, that permit would allow them to substitute teach if approved by the institution of higher education in the program. So they will assist the counties in any shortages, or also it will assist them in gaining additional experience in that particular position before they could apply for that position. We also removed an outdated educational audiologist, which our agency no longer certifies. That's something that is done at the county level. Does not require a certificate from our office. So that language was removed from the policy. We added language to be eligible for a position where no specific endorsement for an elective. So we clarified that was already allowed but we clarified the grade level, we clarified as far as who is eligible to teach those electives. Special education, we added an option for individuals on a permit to apply for an autism endorsement with additional flexibility, meaning not lessening the rigor of what we are asking, but given another opportunity of field experiences in logging that with a principal in a school setting to where the individual can have the exposure needed and the ability to practice their craft with children affected by autism. We also did a change on the athletic and limited football trainer as policy 5112 is being asked to be repealed in conjunction with this policy 5202. So a lot of that, much of that language was incorporated, already existed in 5202, but it was, the pieces were clarified and the necessary pieces from 5112 were absorbed into 5202. And then section 20, the additional endorsement for existing licenses, we clarify language about adding an additional endorsement when coming from an in-state institution, from an out-of-state institution, and also pathways. We added an additional pathway to obtain a superintendent endorsement for those who are in the field practicing with sufficient experience. So we actually provided additional flexibilities for those individuals seeking such endorsements. Also, section 21, salary classification for educators. We clarify language, existing language about the coursework being related to the public school program as appropriate. In section 22, fee reimbursements and salary supplements, we clarify language for limitations of eligible coursework for tuition reimbursement to make it easier on teachers and districts to provide those reimbursements for our educators. Section 23, advanced credentials, we clarified again the eligibility criteria to obtain those credentials, and also some of the old defunct advanced credentials were removed. And we added a new section, section 24, charter school teaching certification, which it will be to provide, based on recent legislation, to provide a teaching certificate to those who qualify as they apply to teach at a charter public school. Then the other thing that you see that will be removed at section 25 will be the definitions. We'll go back to the beginning of the policy. Those are all the revisions and edits to current policy 5202, which again, Mr. Perry and board members have reduced the policy to about 15 to 20 pages.
Any questions or comments, Deborah?
I guess more of a comment. It's a dense, I mean, as you listen to all those changes, I mean, you just realize the amount of work that has gone into not only with you, Robert, but with your staff and your stakeholders, everybody, to improve the teacher preparation programs, would you say? I mean, that's the goal.
Yes, the goal is to.
And the licensure, and
Absolutely.
it's a whole ball of wax. I'm just glad I'm not the one who has to figure out all those. I mean, you have to be an expert on this stuff.
Well, it was a
It's
team
very
effort, and we have a
it's
lot
very
of
complicated.
a lot of people very knowledgeable, and failed to mention we had over 50 stakeholders, internal and external stakeholders that cross over with stakeholders from policy 5100 as well to make this very comprehensive.
Well, it seems to me that we looked at this policy maybe within the past year. Is that right?
Yes, we have, ma'am.
How often are we going to be doing this one? Just, I mean, is it going to be several years, or it
I
seems
believe at
like
least
this?
annually, to
Pardon?
make sure, at least annually, to make sure that we are fine tuning it to the needs of the field and make sure that we have the most qualified teachers in our classrooms.
Good. Okay. Well, good luck. I mean, it's a quite an undertaking, and thank you.
You're welcome.
And a minor point, but the GPA, and you mentioned that.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know that people would just naturally think about, I know I didn't, to think about the rounding or not rounding when you originally had it at just a tenth of a point. Will that change be reflected in other policies where we're calling for GPAs of this or that?
That I'm not certain. I would have to defer.
You'll consider that, but this might be the model to start that movement.
Certainly.
So thank you.
More questions, comments, concerns? Dr.
Uh,
Wilson?
Just a comment, speaking of removing the audiologist from having to be certified by the department, is that go with occupational therapists, speech therapists, and other people like that? Is that a similar group of?
It is somewhat similar. The speech language pathologists are licensed because they're usually full-time positions that are providing the assistance and services to the children. Occupational therapists and audiologists, I think it's more of a contractual basis and it's done differently through the counties. And audiologists have not been licensed through the Office of Certification for a number of years. Therefore, there is no preparation program in the state of West Virginia that we are using to prepare audiologists or certify audiologists for the use in school. Public schools are more for a clinical setting. So it just to basically catch up the policy with the reality of the practice, they were removed.
What additional work does a speech therapist have to be actually employed by the county and not hired as a contract basis? Do they have to have an educational background?
They don't have to have an educational background because their programs are a little bit different. They do have to have an educational practicum where they do practice at the P12 level. So all of them contracted or full-time hired in what I would call as employees of the board have to be certified as an SLP, school SLP in West Virginia, which is a little bit different than audiologists and I think occupational therapists.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. Okay, you need a motion, right?
We do need a motion. We're requesting a motion that the policy be approved to be placed on a 30-day comment period.
And with the definitions moved.
With revisions, yeah, with the definitions revisions, yes.
I'll make that motion.
With repeal, right?
I got, yeah, we'll repeal. Can I get a second? Second. Okay, it's been properly moved and second, that, policy 5202 with revisions, exclusive of the repeal of policy 5112 on public comment for 30 days. Is there a question on the motion?
Mr. President, to be clear, that means that policy 5112 is being repealed.
Right. Is that right now? Am I
That is correct,
telling them
sir.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
Help me out now.
No, I'm just
Okay.
clearing in my mind, so
Okay.
thank you, Mr.
All right.
President.
Okay, thanks for that question. It's been properly moved and second that 5202 with revisions, inclusive of policy 5112 be placed on comment for 30 days. All those in favor, say yes.
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 All those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Thank you for
Thank you.
all your work. Wow. Okay. Is Tim? Okay, here's Tim. Okay, Tim. We're on 7F.
You guys haven't seen Melanie Perk yet today. That's what happens when you don't follow instructions.
President Hall, Superintendent Birch, members of the board, I'll be very brief. This sort of goes piggyback to what we were speaking of earlier. In the transition of March of 2020, when we went to remote learning, became very evident of essentially the inequities that we had as a result of internet access and available devices for students, for that matter, at home. We, as many states across the country, quickly developed surveys to try to get a handle on what that issue was, what that need truly was. We came up with information due to the time that it was released and how the process rolled out. We could make an overall assessment or an assumption of what that data truly meant, but we really couldn't use it in a public setting so much because it just the integrity of how it was collected and so forth. So it became very evident to us that we would get much cleaner and much more accurate data if we could make that more of a collection, not as a collection for an official collection, but in a collection and the ability to have that data. the Student Data Accessibility, Transparency, and Accountability Act of 2014 for the state of West Virginia requires us to place on comment for 60 days any new collected item, anything that would be attached to the student record. And we would like to have this data pulled in and attached to the student record more for data element pinpoint, not necessarily to point out that student A is missing and student B is not. One of the things that this could do for us is to help plot areas where we can see an impact and help perhaps direct some of the deployment of broadband moving in the future. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Have any questions, comments? Dad?
Thank you. I was delighted to read this. In fact, I didn't know that we've ever seen anything like this before, but you just explained why, because you have to have input, put things up. I think that's great, so thank you very much. Under the impact statement, and this is a philosophical issue, perhaps, it says closing the achievement gap, and I heartily agree that that's part of what we should be doing. But I would ask for us to at least consider expanding that. The achievement gap is the beginning, to close that. But we have students in our schools who are not achieving to their potential. So while we're closing this, at the same time, we need to be going outward too. And you look at some of the school data, I can remember looking at it maybe 2 years ago, and you could see that there were gaps of a different nature.
Sure.
And so while we're closing the gap down here, let's consider, and I don't know if there's a way you could, if you even agree, but we need to continue to raise the levels of achievement in all student subgroups. And you all are the wordsmiths on this, but I would ask if we could add something there that would talk about increasing achievement for all student subgroups.
That's big what she's done.
The 4 proposed data elements, from what I could understand, are going to be tied to individual students.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm interested to know, how is that data going to be entered into WVBE?
Well,
Is that somebody sitting there doing
yes,
this?
there will be an application. We will write an application in our department that will be able to collect that information. We essentially did that for the initial survey. We did, in essence, to facilitate the collection piece, we were able to link the collection piece to a student record. We just couldn't maintain that.
Yeah.
We couldn't keep that intact because we would have been violating this. So in an effort to give a school, hey, do you know what this particular student situation is? Check this box, so forth and so on. So we would maintain this data moving forward based on the student record itself. And it would be maintained throughout the year to try to keep as accurate a piece of data as we possibly can.
So somebody at the school
Yes, ma'am.
will input it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the principal, a secretary, a teacher, whomever?
Could be, yes.
Okay. And there, there we have this margin of human error.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
know you deal with that all the time.
Every day.
I'm sure. So, and I said earlier in the meeting today how fortunate we are to have a talented staff. And looking at your department, I recognize the skill. I mean, this is a whole different
Thank you.
mindset, and I think you're fortunate to
Thank you.
have those people. So I'll ask you, do you have, and I'm going to put him on the spot, Mr. Birch. So I'm putting you on the spot. Okay. Do you have the software and the hardware that you need, or is there anything that you'd like to dream on and put out here? Do you need anything? I mean,
Sure, I'll take some more money.
But WVBE is old, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. Well, yes, it is an old application. We are in the process of migrating to a new student information system. We are very close. We're working out some final details on some transition pieces. We've already migrated most or all counties into the new platform for trial. That's not what we're here to talk about, but one of the things that this new student information system will present is the ability for parental accounts to be able to review student record, and potentially have the ability for student or for parent input. So we may be able to get a little cleaner data from that respect. It would have to be, of course, vetted at the school level. We're not just going to carte blanche allow a parent to go in and make edits to records. That would not be smart, but to be able to collect that and then vet it against what we have. So as the question was asked, we've got a tremendous staff that we have the ability and we have the resources in order to build this application. Yes, ma'am.
Good. And perhaps at a future board meeting, we could hear about this new student
Absolutely.
platform. 'Cause
That'd be great.
you know, for those of us who've been aware of WVBE for many
Yes,
years,
ma'am.
it'd be nice to have a new acronym.
Absolutely.
If nothing
Well,
else.
unfortunately, that's in code, so
Oh, code can be amended.
I get it.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Mr. President? No.
Dr. Wilson.
Go
This
ahead.
is also a little bit of a philosophical thing. When we speak about equitable and equal, what are you talking about? Are you talking about equitable results and equal opportunity, or just what?
Well, I guess it's more about the inequitability of what we've got as far as access at home. You know, certainly equity in the schools, we provide funds for the school systems to have equity within the schools. So Tools for Schools funding, Step 7B provides technology funding, at least from my realm anyway. Support for building infrastructure in the schools themselves. So most of our schools are fairly well suited for equity when they're in the schools, but it's when they're out of the schools that is the problem. And we don't really have a means for direct influence on someone's internet access at home. But if we can collect that information, good decisions are made with good data. So if we have that kind of information, we can help in counties that are not yet quite to a one-to-one device situation that they provide for their students, and they would be able to have that information themselves. But we can also use in a general form, one of the add-on tools to our Zoom platform, our statistical reporting platform, gives ability to add on more or less a plotting layer that we can use, much like the GIS maps that we've seen in the past. This plotting layer takes this data that we're providing it and essentially become pinpoints on a map. So, I can see red or green dots. If I've got students that don't have internet access at home and they show as dots, and that's basically all it's going to be is a dot. Then I can see clusters, and where those clusters are, I can perhaps then provide that information to a provider to say, hey, look, you've got 50 within X mile radius, because it's all broken down and analyzed in that regard. So as far as equity is concerned, although we talk about it, it's more about the inequity that a student is seeing from a home use or a home perspective.
How are we sure we're not invading the privacy of the homes and collecting this data?
That is a good question. It is not a required element. And a part of that has to be in the language and the communication that we provide as far as the collection is concerned. Again, it's not a matter of student A does and student B doesn't. It's a matter of, being able to focus or help provide guidance to providing the services for those students.
I just think we need to be, there's so much we can do and so much we can collect. I just have to be careful not to do that.
That was a very big consideration for us, even from the initial collections, the initial survey that we did. And I am as much about privacy and protection of that data as anybody is, sir.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Campbell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Couple thoughts come to mind. I've been out in the schools quite a bit lately, just to see how in Reboard County particularly, see how they've been adapting to COVID and talking to teachers, students. Ms. Sullivan spoke about the achievement gap. And I think what I would say is achievement is really critical, period. I think, is that part of what you were saying? And it ties into what Dr. Wilson was just asking. I'm aware of a very bright student in Monroe County who lives fairly far away from the school and doesn't have connectivity. I'm sure that family would say, no, we don't have it. They would let you know.
Yep.
Because it's affecting her ability to participate at school. And she's a very good student. So she's not going to be able to achieve at as high level as she could. Now I think she's she's kind of maybe in the middle to the upper. But I think one thing COVID has taught me, maybe all of us, is that there are unique needs for each student, and achievement for critical for all. Some of the problems I think at the lower income actually are sometimes similar to good students because they're kind of out of the norm. And I don't know if schools are still like they were when I was there, but we were kind of cliquish. And if you're a little bit out of the norm on either end, you kind of got, left out. But I think what Ms. Sullivan's saying, I'm trying to say is, the unique needs of every kid are so important, every child are so important. And I think that's one thing I know the teachers have told me that, they've learned that, administrators, I'm not going to that now, but there have been a lot of things learned out of COVID that I think are going to help us going forward. So I would just follow up on her comments and say, hopefully, we can realize how unique each child is.
You go round and round with this, Evanston, I think it was Illinois, not Indiana, but they just found an inequity in a great range of students, and then with this pandemic, only the lower range students are allowed to go back to school face to face. Well, we can't ignore our bright kids either. It's got to be a total, and just, you can't, but these are the people who are gonna have the innovation that we were talking about earlier.
Yes, Jim, it doesn't diminish the need at the.
No.
But it's across the spectrum that we need to support our students. That's what.
But needless to say, these parents are all upset, and this is gonna lead to more kids going to private schools.
It is, already is. Yep.
Questions, comments? I think you need a motion, right?
Yes, sir. It is recommended that a motion be made for a new data element proposal be placed on public comment for 60 days. This is a statutory 60-day requirement.
Okay.
So move that the data collection, digital equity be placed on public comment for 60 days.
Is there a second?
Sure.
Okay. It's been properly moved and second that the new data element proposed to be placed on public comment is it minor revisions? Do we need to make some revisions from putting it
Are
from
there
front?
definitions in this?
Back to front? Is that?
No, this
No?
doesn't have any.
That's what I
Okay,
thought.
okay, I want to make sure. Be placed on comment
We're going to get that right now.
for 60 days. Is there a question on your motion? None heard. It's been properly moved and second that the new data element proposed to be placed on comment for 30 days. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
You got the mic.
Thank you, President Hall. So during the pandemic, the board had approved a process for the state superintendent to work on waivers and report them monthly to the Board of Education. I don't think at the time we thought we would continue under an executive order or an emergency plan. And I also don't know that we thought we would still be dealing with the schools opening and closing as they have. With that being said, Assistant Superintendent Barth is back there. Deputy Superintendent Michelle Blatt have come forward, worked with me to put this together. We are finding that counties are still requesting waivers as they find just as a substitute teacher issues and other things we move forward. So this is simply Virginia was kind enough to bring it to our attention that, that was really for the 1920 school year. And that if we wanted to continue that process, we really needed the board to weigh in on that for the 2021 school year. So, President Hall, that is really what this request is to see where the board stands on.
Okay, anybody, any questions? Deb?
I obviously see the need for it to continue, but a question I would have is, and maybe they're going to tell us, is there a waiver report for this month? So we get to hear what kind of things are coming up?
So really, you get the waiver report on the consent agenda each month. It's the one that you receive. It's a COVID waiver on consent. Every month we send it to you as part of the board. Yes, ma'am. And we would continue that same process. There would be a process that they have to put the waivers into. It's reviewed here, and it will not make it onto the board agenda unless it's vetted and goes through the leadership team.
So the waivers that we have on our agenda are the only waivers, whether they are COVID-related or otherwise?
Yep, and I'm going to look at Dr. Barth back there. She's kind of shaking her head. She's also going to be very clear to begin separating those out, so you definitely know, and we can run reports for you on the COVID waivers that have been requested and the general waivers that continue to come in.
That's great.
Dr. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are we still under a state of emergency?
Good question.
Yes.
So your recommendation is we do this for an entire year again?
As long as we stay under a state of emergency and we continue to see requests coming in from the local superintendents and schools on, let's just say, situations that do continue to arise that they didn't foresee.
So rather than saying 2021, we can make a motion that it be until such time a state of emergency would be lifted. I mean, is that?
That actually, absolutely, that would be another way to put it.
Then I would, Mr. President, I would make that motion that we continue to approve the superintendent approved waiver process until such time that the state of emergency would be lifted.
Okay.
And, Mr. President?
Go ahead.
And Mr. Perry, and at that point, depending on the situation, that would just give us a chance to review at that
Review
time
it, consider
what we
it.
want to go going forward.
Right. And what causes us to review it.
Sure. Well, it forces to
Yeah.
versus just letting it
Yeah.
ride, which I would argue probably with you that that's a good thing, that we weigh in and see. My fear is the state of emergency is going to last for a long time.
Yeah.
But
I think it is too.
that's my fear. Maybe I'm wrong,
I
and
agree
I hope
with
I'm wrong, and then, we're back here talking about this fairly soon, but.
Right.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second to extend the authority of the state superintendent of schools, continue to approve waivers until the state emergency is, I hate to use the word decreased, is no longer in effect for West Virginia Board of Education policies. Is there a question on the motion? None heard. It's been properly moved and second to extend the authority of the state superintendent of schools to continue to approve waivers until the state of emergency is dropped. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session for litigation updates as provided in West Virginia Code 69A4B2A, in personnel exception and/or 69A4, matters involving attorney-client privilege per Peters versus County Commission, 205 West Virginia 481, 1999. I move.
Is there a second? Second. It's been properly moved that we enter executive session.
All those in favor? We have to
All
vote.
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, opposed, no. Want to do it in here, group? Can we do it in here, Virginia, or go back? Okay, we'll go in the back.
Are we distance okay back there?
This is social distancing okay back there? No?
We have members saying no.
No. We have members saying no? So we can stay in here. Okay, we just stay in here then.